Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Elmwood-Transcona.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, the member for Toronto Centre, when he spoke, talked about the British and the United States governments as two governments that actually have a process to deal with the treatment of prisoners. And I'd like to ask the member whether he feels that the process of having an inquiry would actually, at the end of the day, improve the public policy.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the question. We are in the business of good public policy, so I would suggest to him and to members of the House that it would, in fact, enhance good public policy. I think it's important that we, in fact, be able to look at all of these facts in a very clear way, and I think the public inquiry, the only reason, by the way, Mr. Speaker, we're calling for a public inquiry and why we're supporting this motion is because the Special Standing Committee on Afghanistan cannot get to the bottom of it because of redacted documents, because of the failure to be able to really do the probing. And so, from our standpoint, I think the result would be what the member suggests.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Peterborough.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I find this member's statements troubling. In fact, I find a number of the statements made by the official opposition really reprehensible and troubling on this issue. And the member specifically cites that he doesn't have evidence. He doesn't have enough evidence. Well, 3 top Army generals sat before this member and provided evidence. That is evidence that they were providing. When General Hillier, General Gauthier, and General Fraser sat before this member, provided evidence refuting any testimony that there had ever been any indication of torture of Canadian detainees turned over. What did this member respond by saying? We don't know who to believe. I don't know whether to believe these heroes, these 3 generals who are Canadian heroes. I don't know whether to believe them or not. That is a statement made by this member. It's reprehensible. He should stand in his place and apologize for questioning your comments, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what I find reprehensible is that from the peanut gallery over here, we hear someone stand up and not only make accusations which are not correct, but if the member had bothered to listen, he would have heard, 1, my support for the troops, 2, support for the generals. But the fact is that this crowd over here always likes to stand behind, oh, we support the armed forces. Well, you don't have a monopoly on the armed forces support any more than we do. So, get with the program over there. Stop trying to change the channel. The channel is your competence. It's your watch that we're looking at, not the generals and not our soldiers in the field. And don't try and pull that nonsense in here.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Papineau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Honourable Member who has experience on the Defence Committee to remind us all, what is the role of parliamentarians in overseeing generals and the Canadian Armed Forces?
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for the question. We are obviously in the business of public policy, and ultimately the armed forces are responsible to government. It's the government that dictates policy. And so what we're looking at, as my colleague knows, is the policy of the government, not the actions of our soldiers. Our soldiers respond to policy that is derived from government. And so that the government, if they don't have anything to hide, they should be able to do so. Our soldiers carry out their responsibilities based on government policy.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for St. John's East. Very short question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Human Rights Watch, which is an internationally recognized body taking an interest in issues of human rights throughout the world, they've also supported the call for an independent inquiry. And I wonder, does the member think that this kind of call affects the international reputation of Canada if we don't have one?
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, our central tenet for foreign policy has always been human rights and the protection of the individual, and I would certainly concur with my colleague's comments. I think they're well-founded, and I think they would have an effect on a country which is known both for its support of human rights historically and for the security of the individual.